The day had been long. The disciples, exhausted and disheartened, returned from their mission, where they had gone into neighboring villages to spread the message of the kingdom. But instead of joy and open arms, they had encountered hostility, indifference, and in some places outright rejection. Doors were shut in their faces. Words of scorn were thrown their way. The very people they sought to help turned them away, sometimes with anger and sometimes with mockery. As they gathered by the shore of the Sea of Galilee, the sun was sinking into the horizon, painting the sky in a tapestry of purples, oranges, and deep reds. The air was still, but within the disciples, a storm was brewing, an inner turmoil born of their recent experiences. The fire crackled before them, but even its warmth could not melt the coldness they felt in their hearts. Peter, always the first to speak, broke the silence. His voice was a mixture of frustration, confusion, and sadness. "Master," he began, "why do they turn us away? We speak of love and hope, but they reject us as though we're spreading lies. It is hard, so hard to keep going when all we receive in return is rejection." The other disciples nodded in agreement, their faces etched with the weight of the rejection they had faced. Andrew, Peter's brother, who was usually calm and quiet, spoke up this time. "We are doing what you've asked us to do, Lord. But everywhere we go, it feels as though we are met with resistance. It's as if our message falls on deaf ears, or worse, they hear us and simply do not care. It is disheartening." James, one of the sons of thunder, who was known for his fierce loyalty and courage, now sat slumped, his head in his hands. "It's hard not to take it personally, Rabbi. We left everything for you. We gave up our homes, our families, our livelihoods. But when people reject us, it feels like they are rejecting all of that. All the sacrifices we've made seem meaningless." Beside him, his brother John was quieter, but the pain was clear in his youthful face. His eyes glistened with tears, reflecting the firelight. "Why, Lord? Why do they not see the truth? We offer them eternal life and they turn away. Are we doing something wrong? Or are we not good enough?" The vulnerability in John's voice made the air even heavier. The disciples had always looked up to Jesus with unwavering faith, but this mission had left them shaken. They had begun to doubt, not only their mission but themselves. Jesus, who had been sitting silently, observing the troubled hearts of his friends, finally spoke. His voice, as always, was gentle yet commanding, a mixture of deep compassion and authority. "Come closer, my friends." The disciples obeyed, drawing nearer to him, eager for the comfort and wisdom they had come to rely on. Jesus gazed out over the darkening waters of the lake, the soft glow of the moon now starting to cast silver ripples across the surface. He waited for a moment, allowing the tension to settle, as if gathering their heavy emotions into the silence. Then with a calm voice he began. "There once was a stone," Jesus said, his eyes still fixed on the horizon, "a stone that was brought to a grand construction site where a beautiful temple was being built. This temple was to be a place of glory, a testament to the divine, a structure meant to inspire awe in all who beheld it." The disciples listened intently. They had heard Jesus speak in parables many times before, knowing that hidden within each story was a lesson that would unlock a new understanding of life and faith. Jesus continued, "The builders examined each stone carefully, searching for those that were perfect, smooth, symmetrical, and easily placed into the walls of the temple. But when they came upon this particular stone, they found it rough, jagged, and misshapen. It was not like the others. It didn't fit into the place they had intended for it, and so they cast it aside, deeming it unworthy to be part of their grand design." The disciples began to see themselves in the story, already identifying with the stone that had been rejected. For days, weeks, and even years, Jesus went on, the stone lay in the dirt, overlooked and forgotten. Other stones, seemingly more perfect, were chosen and placed in the temple's walls. The builders took pride in their choices, congratulating themselves on their careful selection of only the best materials. But still the temple was not finished. It was missing something crucial, The cornerstone, the most important stone, the one that would hold the entire structure together. The fire crackled as the disciples leaned in, eager to hear where the story would go next. There was a tension in the air, as though they could sense the profound meaning that was about to be revealed. The builders searched high and low, Jesus said, but none of the chosen stones were strong enough or shaped correctly to bear the weight of the temple. They tried every stone they had, but still none would fit. In their desperation, they remembered the stone they had rejected, the one they had discarded long ago because it didn't meet their standards. With little hope, they dug it out of the dirt and placed it in the corner of the temple. And to their amazement, it fit perfectly. The stone they had deemed worthless became the cornerstone, the most important piece of the entire structure. Jesus let the words hang in the air, allowing the disciples to absorb the weight of the story. The fire flickered softly, casting long shadows across their faces as they sat in silence. Peter was the first to speak. His voice was quieter now, filled with emotion. "Lord, are we that stone?" Jesus turned to Peter, his eyes full of compassion and understanding. "Yes, Peter. You are that stone. Each of you is. The world may not see your worth. They may reject you because you do not fit their idea of what is valuable. But your value is not determined by their judgment. You have been chosen by God, not by man. And just as the builders could not see the importance of the rejected stone until the time was right, so too will you be revealed as essential to the work of the kingdom." Tears welled up in Peter's eyes. He had been a fisherman, a simple man before Jesus had called him. And now, even as he followed the Messiah, he often felt unworthy. He was rough around the edges, like the stone in Jesus' story. But now he realized that his imperfections didn't disqualify him. They were part of what made him valuable in God's eyes. John, who had been quietly wiping his own tears, looked up at Jesus. "But why, Lord? Why must we endure this rejection? It is painful. It makes us feel small, as though we are not enough." Jesus' face softened, his expression one of deep empathy. "John, rejection is part of the journey, not because you are unworthy, but because the world does not always recognize the things of God. The pain you feel is real, and I do not diminish it. But know this: rejection shapes you. It humbles you. It teaches you to trust in God's timing and to lean not on your own understanding, but on the truth that you are already accepted by the one who matters most." James, still struggling with the weight of their mission, asked, "But what if the rejection doesn't stop? What if no one listens to us, Lord? How do we keep going?" Jesus smiled, his gaze tender but resolute. "You keep going, James, because you are not walking this path for the approval of others. You are walking it for the glory of God. Not everyone will accept your message, but that does not mean your work is in vain. Every seed you plant, whether it takes root or not, is part of the kingdom's unfolding. You may not see the fruits immediately, but they will come. And in the meantime, remember, your worth is not tied to the outcome. It is tied to the love of the Father, who sees you, knows you, and calls you by name." Tears flowed freely now, not only from Peter and John but from all the disciples. They had been carrying the burden of rejection, believing it to be a reflection of their own inadequacy. But now, hearing Jesus' words, they began to understand that their rejection was not a sign of failure. It was part of a larger, divine plan, one that they could not yet fully see, but one that they trusted with all their hearts. The fire flickered again, casting a warm glow on the disciples' faces. Jesus rose from his seat and walked to the edge of the water, the moonlight reflecting off the sea. He stood there for a moment, his figure silhouetted against the night sky, the embodiment of peace in a world that often rejected him as well. He turned back to his disciples, his voice carrying across the quiet waves. "The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. It is not just a story, my friends, it is a truth. You are that cornerstone. The world may not see it yet, but you are essential to the foundation of the kingdom. Do not be discouraged by rejection, for it cannot diminish the love and purpose that God has placed within you." Jesus paused, letting his words sink deep into their hearts. "Rejection," he said, "is not the end. It is often the beginning of something greater. You may be cast aside by the world, but you are never cast aside by God. You are chosen. You are loved. And you are part of a story that is still being written, one in which your role is more important than you can imagine. Peter stood up, his heart filled with a renewed sense of purpose. We will keep going, Lord. No matter how many doors are closed, no matter how many turn us away, we will continue. The other disciples stood with him, their hearts lifted, the heaviness they had felt earlier now replaced with a deep, unshakable peace. Jesus smiled at them, his eyes filled with love and pride. Go, my friends. You are already chosen. Rejection cannot break you, for you belong to the Father. And His love is all you need. As they turned to leave, walking into the night with the moonlight guiding their steps, the disciples felt a profound sense of joy. The rejection they had faced no longer weighed them down. They had been reminded that their worth was not tied to the opinions of others, but to the love of God. And with that knowledge they were ready to face whatever came next. In that moment, as they walked side by side, they were no longer defined by the rejection they had faced. They were defined by the love and purpose that had been spoken over them by their Master. And in that truth they found peace, an unshakable, eternal peace that rejection could never take away. This is end of the story. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.